coaches during a session can have an on-screen assistant that maybe is paying attention during the session and can bring up helpful notes, be like, oh, this client mentioned this 3 months ago, and here's like you're talking about imposter syndrome. You had the same conversation 3 months ago. Here's like a helpful summary of what was said last time. So you can be present during the meeting, but then also get like helpful flashbacks.
Welcome to the Excellent International Leadership Podcast. Your host today works with the world's leading experts on international leadership, helping them find purpose and implement their vision. She's a master certified coach and facilitates a mastermind for CEOs of international companies. She's the author of 3 books and works with Nestle, Novartis, and even the United Nations. She's especially good at helping executives fast track to the C-suite. Welcome, Dr. Katrina Burrus.
Welcome. I'm your host, Dr. Katrina Burrus, and today we have a very special person called Samiur Rahman. Samiur Rahman is an AI software specialist and a machine learning expert.
Yeah.
Good. So tell us a little bit about your background, and then we'll go into discussing AI.
Thank you, Dr. Burrus. It's so good to be on the podcast. My background, I've been working on building machine learning and AI products for the last 12 to 13 years. Started my career off at working at Amazon, building software, on using machine learning to automate things. Realized that the big company experience wasn't exactly for me, so I've been progressively working at smaller and smaller companies. And most recently, before the company that I'm working on, Heyday, I had started another company called Journal. My background and my passion has been in building knowledge management tools that help folks get more out of their knowledge and their research. And so Journal was in some ways an early version of Heyday, where we helped folks search all of their information, their documents, their emails, their notes from one place. But unfortunately, we had to shut that company down. We couldn't figure out how to make it a profitable business. We started Heyday a couple months after that, which is, has a similar mission, but made it a more focused product around being an AI thought partner for knowledge workers, where we would essentially, our mission is to be an AI assistant for people who do a lot of knowledge work, so that we can automate away as much of the mundane tasks as possible, so that they can spend more time on the creative superpowers that they have. And most recently, we started working with executive coaches.
Why executive coaches should use AI?
Yeah.
So what can it do for them?
I think everyone in the world will probably have to use AI to some degree or other. It's a wave of technology, probably similar to what it was like when the smartphones came out, where there was an initial adoption, but then gradually everyone started to use it. So I think it will become part of everyone's workflow at some point. But more importantly, I think, having talked to so many coaches, I've had executive coaching myself for 3 to 4 years. I know that the most unique superpower that coaches have is to have insightful conversations with their clients, to draw out thought-provoking insights and make it so that within an hour session, maybe their clients get so much new perspective that it helps them solve big problems. But there's also all these things around it that coaches have to do that they aren't uniquely set up to do. So,
such as, give us very specific examples how it could help.
Specifics are like, a lot of clients want notes, the most important notes coming out of a client session. And like a lot of coaches will take those notes either during the session, so they're maybe not quite as present because they're taking the notes as they're having a session, or they'll spend time afterwards and maybe like spend a half an hour after every session taking these notes. And that's like time potentially wasted. A lot of high earning executive coaches, that could be like $1,000 an hour. And so think half an hour spent on notes, that means $500 basically spent taking notes.
But Samiur, how is that different from Otter or other transcription?
Yeah, I think if you've used any of those products, I'd say they're very broadly focused, right? So there's optimized for the meetings of everyone in the world. And they're very focused around transcripts. What we did is we learned, like, by working with coaches, like, what do they want those notes to look like? What are the formats that are most relevant to coaches? Like, usually clients want to have like key takeaways, not like a long list of what happened during a meeting. Keep it as short as possible. Executives are busy. How do you extract the most meaningful things, like takeaways, action items, potentially follow-up questions, and leave it just to that? That's like one example, I'd say, where we're trying to benefit coaches, but obviously that's what comes to my mind initially. But also, one of the things that I think coaches can use AI for is help with sharing more of their insights publicly. So, or creating content to share more of their insights. So one of the ways we help coaches do that is have a writing assistant that helps to take their insightful quotes from their conversation and take a topic and then get them from 0 to 1, all the way from, hey, I have an idea about writing about imposter syndrome, and I know I just had some interesting conversations about that. Our AI will help extract the most insightful quotes and takeaways from your conversations that you're having with your clients, and then help you compose a very authentic, original post. But for someone who's maybe not a skilled writer, it helps them get from 0 to 1 very quickly.
Okay. So I'm just going to reformulate. So if
Yeah.
I understood correctly, you're having a conversation with your client.
Mhm.
Meantime, this software is taking the essential notes, not transcribing verbatim, the essential notes. And then let's say the discussion is on the imposter syndrome.
Right.
The AI could help you give in more information on the imposter syndrome so that you can give back to your client not only what was discussed, but you can validate it with more data.
Yeah, and if you wanted to use those conversations to create a public post, like if you wanted to write a blog post, you wanted to write a chapter of a book that you're working on, or even just like a LinkedIn post. A lot of coaches have to grow their brand and their business because it's just the way the world works.
Yeah.
And so that's one of those areas where coaches spend a lot of time, and it's important to their business, but it's not necessarily their superpower. So like, how can we help people with original insights get it out to people more so that they can build their brand? That's another thing that we're helping with.
Okay, so the content can be used for social media. Okay, that's very understandable.
And in
However,
the future,
go ahead.
One of the things we're not working on, but someone should be, or in the future, it could be that coaches during a session can have an on-screen assistant that maybe is paying attention during the session and can bring up helpful notes, be like, oh, this client mentioned this 3 months ago, and here's, like, you're talking about imposter syndrome, you had the same conversation 3 months ago, here's like a helpful summary of what was said last time. So you can be present during the meeting, but then also get like helpful flashbacks.
That's very good.
Real time. We're not doing that yet, but maybe someday we will.
Yeah, that would be great, because then you have a database of all. But of course, I would imagine that a lot of people are concerned about confidentiality, because that's very important in executive coaching.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's that's one of the main things that even before we started working with executive coaching, our product wanted to be an AI thought partner for knowledge workers. And it was. We had like 500 paying customers before, and we're asking them to integrate their most important sources of information. Like, it's directly integrated into their browser, into their email, the documents. And so even for non-coaches, we took security and privacy very seriously, because we're asking people to integrate their most important source of information. And we wanted to make sure we would be like as close to 100% as possible secure. We encrypt our information in a way that a hacker would need to hack 3 different systems to be able to decrypt our users' information. Internal employees can decrypt it, but we have an audit log and a company policy that if someone does that, they would be fired basically immediately. And so that protects from no internal access of any user's information. And then the other thing that we really care about is aligning our business model with the incentive of providing a great service. So we're a paid-only service. We charge $40 a month, and our goal is to continue to serve you well so that you continue to pay us. Think like the business model difference between Apple and something like Google and Facebook. With Google and Facebook, they're making most the money basically selling your attention to advertisers, whereas like Apple is making their money by selling their hardware and their software to you, and that, in my mind, makes them by default more aligned with your security and privacy, because they're not going to use your data to do anything else. And so that's how we wanted to set ourselves up to.
I see. Very interesting. So let's say coaches would like to start experimenting with AI because it's a lot of talk. What's your suggestion how they should start?
Well, I have a biased suggestion, obviously. I would suggest using Heyday, our product, to start. But I think there's also little things you can start with. So one of the things could be, you can use products like ChatGPT, which is more public and won't have as much automatically integrated like we do. And what you can do is, hey, if you have a transcript of a conversation, you can upload that into ChatGPT. And then let's say you were trying to think through like how to help a client, you can potentially use some of these AIs to be a thought partner for you and be like, act like a thought partner for me for this client. Okay, and here's a transcript of a conversation we had. What are the ways that, any question that you could ask about that client? What are the ways that I could suggest that they could practice working on their imposter syndrome? And then you can get like little suggestions there. So it'll kind of drive forward your thinking. The other things that I think about are like on onboarding, I hear many coaches do this 360 review with many. I don't know if you're familiar, but it's
of course
like,
I'm familiar.
just want to make sure. 360 review with many of the clients surrounding coworkers and direct reports. And so it's a lot of information to process. So something like an AI product will allow you to upload the transcripts of all those conversations and then ask specific questions around, well, I want to be able to extract patterns about, what all these people said. What would you say is like the top 10 strengths that this client has? An AI would be able to help you get like an early draft list very quickly without you committing to a product like us, which is more of a, oh, we will record everything for you. We'll integrate with your email. We're integrating with your documents provider. It's a little bit more of a commitment. These are kinds of like things that you could do as more of a one-off to test out what the power.
For example, could your app, because there's not only 360-degree is a format, which on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being very good, 1 being very low on certain competencies.
Right.
However, what especially for difficult leaders that I work with, I don't do that because it doesn't give enough specific examples.
Right.
So I do maybe 10 to 20 interviews, asking them their strength and what would make the relationship more productive. So it's a huge amount of data that takes intensive time and energy. So according to what you say, I could put all that data in and say, what are the 3 out of the 10 categories that being the most strength this person has and the least strength. So it would categorize and give me examples. And then also in what would make the relationship more productive. Tell me the most valid, meaning people say the same thing, according to that category.
One, you could probably figure out a way to how to do this with ChatGPT, but it'd be very difficult, I'd say. With us, we have a feature in our product where you can create a collections of things, whether it's recordings, meetings, documents. So I'll have a collection, let's say, on machine learning in general. It's my collection of interesting interviews about machine learning, new papers that I'm reading, all these different formats of things all in one. But I have a chat assistant, an AI assistant that's specific to that collection that I can ask questions about. So like you can use that collection to be a collection of all the interviews for a 360, and then use it to like ask questions to say, okay, can you tell me about the top 3 strengths across all these interviews that came up for multiple times for this client? And like that would be a kind of thing that you can ask the AI, and it would be able to draft answers based on all of the things in those interviews.
So that would save a lot of time. Now, how would you input the information? Would you need to prepare it in a certain way?
So this is why, like, so if you're using something like ChatGPT, yes, you would. You'd have to figure out a way to export the transcript, probably turn it into a PDF and upload multiple PDFs. It's a lot of work. But if you're using us, every recording is already transcribed in the way that our software would understand it. So all you'd have to do is there's a way for you to select the recordings that you want to add to this system. Or if you have an export of your 360s, like in written form, you can add those too. If it's like a PDF export, you can add those. Our software goal is to understand all these different formats and be able to extract information from any of those formats.
Yeah, so that would be a huge gain in time, because it's not coaching, it's really analyzing the data. Right. And even researchers would be interested, I would think.
Exactly. Our long-term vision is to be an AI thought partner for anyone who does a lot of research heavy work.
So you told us how they should start. So tell us what your software provides compared to other software. Now, I'm going to precursor. There's some softwares that can tell you the emotional state of your clients by the voice and things like that. Is that anything that you might be doing now or in the future? Are you really focused on being information and data to give it into an actionable item?
Right now, definitely more focused on the latter, more about just pure information and data. I could see ourselves maybe trying to have a little bit more information on sentiment and things like that during a call. It's probably not the route that we'll go. It's not our expertise to necessarily understand that stuff. We're far more experts of turning things into text content and then analyzing all the different parts of this tech. Like we can understand a transcript and a PDF and a note and an email and a document or an article on a website. So like a lot of things you can turn into like the text version of itself. And it's hard to do that with emotion. It's sort of like you have to turn it into some sort of like play-like format, sort of like Samiur said this, but he said it with rising intonation or something in like parentheses. So we'd have to figure out a way to like denote those things in the transcript so that we like our software can understand that. And so I think that would be quite difficult given the amount of information we're trying
that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
But you're already doing a lot of admin and getting all the data from the different venues. Who's mentioned email, the transcripts.
We connect with Slack and chat services too. So if I know certain clients will have like their coach added to their chat system. And then if you're sharing documents back and forth, or you're sharing an article with them to read, all of those things get captured.
And can you ask information in your app about the data?
Yes.
So give us an example.
So an example could be, so I like, this is not a coaching example, but this is a way that I use my product. I'll do video interviews with our users and ask them for feedback about the product over email. And so it'll be like, oh, maybe I had an hour-long conversation with someone who's coming up with ideas or giving us feedback about a product, and I already have a client profile built for that person. All I have to go to is their client profile, and there's an AI assistant there where I can ask things like, can you summarize the feedback for Heyday that Katrina had? And it would be able to like go through all the emails, all the conversations I had, figure out which parts were relevant for feedback, and then extract those things and use that as sources to create an answer for that question. a coaching and a specific question could be, when I brought up the concept of conscious leadership, what was the reaction that my client had? And then so it could be like the ability to like figure out, like, we're trying to remember, a lot of coaches will have 15 to 20 clients. And so sometimes they'll just forget, like, when did I mention this? What did my client say when I mentioned this? It's like just hard to go through that. An example would be just to extract out the content that was said during a conversation.
So it helps you with your memory too.
Yeah, we actually started by being a memory partner, and then we were like, you know what? We're doing memory plus thought too, so that's why we call it now an AI thought partner.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the thought partner. How does that reveal itself in your app?
A lot of it is just having this AI assistant to be able to ask quick questions. So it can be used as a memory partner, or it can be used to like suggest like new avenues of helping your client. Again, these AIs are not expert coaches, so they can only give you like basic suggestions, but it can sometimes like lead you to have like that first thought that sparks a better thought. You can use that to generate ideas. We will, after each session, generate a list of potential follow-up questions for your client too, for your next session. So I think of that as like more of a kind of a, instead of it just being a memory partner, it's a thought partner of trying to help you serve your client better.
Wonderful. Now, last question, because we're coming at the end of our podcast, but do you think that one day the AI could replace coaches? Because I'm sure a lot of coaches are thinking about this.
I do not at all. I'm obviously an AI proponent, and I've had executive coaching myself for 3 to 4 years. And the like kind of deep level of conversation that I have with my coach that takes that skillful ability to understand the emotions and the journey that a client has taken and be able to navigate and then find out the insights within that long journey, extract out and be able to help a client with on that specific instance. I just don't think like that's a job for the AI. So like I genuinely think for most top coaches, what AI will be doing is helping them just focus on those superpowers, that the ability to have those insightful conversations, and then the rest will be automated more so that they can focus on that. But there's probably a lot of democratization that can be done where we could probably get the one-time coaching. So someone's looking for career transition help, things like that, where right now it's hard to find someone, or it's a little too expensive for folks who are earlier in their career. I think those kinds of one-off services can be automated more so that it can be much cheaper for someone to get coaching from an AI that's learned how to give good career transition advice. I can also see it as someone, I lived kind of all over the world growing up, and there's a lot of places in the world where $25 an hour is very expensive. $100 an hour is even like totally outside of the realm of being usable. And in those places, I could see like even having like an 80% good enough coach for helping you think about imposter syndrome, helping you think about transition, all these things in an AI form would still be super helpful. So I do think that's the area that could be automated a little bit.
Wow. Anyway, thank you very, very much for all this information. Where can people get a hold of you, and where could they purchase Heyday?
Yeah, both of those are probably similar. So Heyday, you can check out Heyday at heyday.xyz/coaches. You can reach out to me directly over email at Samir at heyday.xyz, or you can find me. I'm kind of a little left behind on the social networks, but you can find me on LinkedIn, I'm sure. Samiur Rahman. I used to be a big on Twitter. Nowadays, Twitter is a little bit less usable than it used to be. Yeah. But yeah, I think email would probably be the best way to get in touch.
Wonderful. Thank you. They'll be all in the show notes as well.
Great.
Thank you so much. Most interesting. And wow,
Thank you.
Sounds like a great addition to executive coaching.
I hope so. And we're trying to make it better every day.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Excellent International Leadership Podcast. You can subscribe to all future podcasts at excellentexecutivecoaching.com and select podcasts. Join us each Thursday to learn more about the latest trends in leadership techniques and bring your leadership to the next level. To learn more about Dr. Burrus's coaching programs and the International Leadership Mastermind, use the contact form at excellentexecutivecoaching.com.